to being done here, just accomplishing what I feel like I have to do, which is all wrapped up in these stories I'm telling. And then hopefully I'm done and I can go back where I was while I was briefly dead on that operating table.
When you and I last talked, we were talking about Apocalypse Near, and you wrote it under the pseudonym E because of the paranormal events from your clinical death. Now, will that continue in the new book, and can you talk about the paranormal reason for the pseudonym?
Well, there's actually several reasons for that. I wanted to remove any, connection to my biological earthly form and the importance of being an author, and just have people concentrate on the protagonist's mission. And also because while I was in that situation of being clinically dead, and after I woke up from the surgery, I had no memory of who I was, what I was, where I was. Had amnesic fugue to the extreme. So that's also the protagonist's problem in this story, of being separated from any identity. So he's trying to figure out who he is, why he is, where he is, what he is, and why he's been put on this quest to fight this war on war and save the planet from the humans, etc. I was in that condition. It was the biggest fear of my life, and I was living it out. And ironically, that big fear came from an anti-war novel that I'd read when I was young, and a film that I had seen called Johnny Got His Gun. Are you familiar with that?
Vaguely.
Douglas Trumbo's book about a soldier of World War I who gets blown up, and but he's still alive, although he's got what's called locked-in syndrome. And this is what I had. He's blind, paralyzed, deaf, dumb, blind. But he's conscious and he can't communicate. He's aware of everything going on around him. He's awake, but he can't communicate it to people. And he's just watching his life go on around him, and everybody's talking about him as if he's not there. And he's trying to break out of this state of being aware, but he's just a trunk left. His limbs have been blown off. He's paralyzed, deaf, dumb, blind. I was in that condition for a while, and so that was my ultimate fear. And then I found myself living it when I woke up. So the theme of my book and the tagline is "Fear is a fatal frontier." Be careful about what you fear, lest you manifest it, and let love persevere rather than fear.
Do you think that as a society, that we should bring back religious philosophies back into the schools? Or should there be a definite separation between church and state?
Well, that's one of those interesting things where if you look at that phrase right there, separation between church and state, that's not part of the Constitution. It's been twisted and made into that. But if you want to just deal with that question on the basis of statistics, when the Bible was part of curriculum and prayer was in the schools, the statistics just show across the board there wasn't teenage pregnancy, there wasn't all this crime. You can just go back and look at the statistics. And when we removed that from the schools and started telling kids that you're just a product of evolution, you come from a rock that got rained on, and now you're then you were a monkey and now you're a human, and then we wonder why they act like animals. You just told them they're an animal.
Exactly.
So I think there's your answer. Just look at the statistics of what happened when that was removed. So just remove the damage and go. If you want to do a real scientific experiment, put it back and see what happens. And then if it doesn't work out and people are still the same, okay, you can just always go back to where you were, which is a total mess statistically.
But, science isn't everything it's made out to be, because science, history, and all the other so-called... what's the word I'm looking for here? So-called, let's just call them sciences for now. They're wrong. They are the first who will not admit they are wrong. Look, we know now that Christopher Columbus didn't discover the Americas. God.
Yeah.
The Vikings were here. The Irish monks were here. There was trade going on between the Mediterranean and North America way before Columbus. And yet kids are still being taught in school today that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas. Yeah,
and they're also taught that, evolution, biogenesis, that, they come from a rock. Rock to croc, goo to you. And that's been proven scientifically over and over again that that's a belief system. That's a religion. There's only the adaptation of species within species. That's the only part of the so-called evolutionary theory that's provable. Everything else is a belief system. There's no scientific evidence. There's no fossil record for it. But that's taught in the schools
Yeah.
as science. But it's not science. It's a belief system. So they're really just two competing belief systems. If you want to talk about, the God question and evolution, it's just another belief system. There's no science supporting it. There's a number of books written that totally tear the theory apart.
Tell me, do you believe that extraterrestrials may have had anything to do with the creation of life on this planet?
Well, I've actually seen UFOs in my life, and I don't know if they were extraterrestrial from here or, but that's, when you look at, cave paintings, there is some things that can lead you to believe that we were visited in our ancient past, and I don't know, but I think that's kind of that's even a more far-fetched theory than looking at our own ancient writings about what's going on between us as a species on the planet and why we're in the situation we're in. So it's a possibility, but and again, I've seen things flying around that I don't know what they were. They appeared to be nuts and bolts things that were very strange, but I could have just been seeing some government technology that's just. I used to live near Homestead Air Force Base, so I saw some things flying around that I don't know what they were, but I can't say if they were extraterrestrial. It's a possibility. I don't know.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you. What do you hope to accomplish with your book and internet projects? And what's the end game?
Well, I intend this to be the greatest anti-war novel ever written. That's what I'm moving towards here.
What kind of what are some of your internet projects that you've got going?
Well, the way that my websites interact with these books is why I won the award. You can interact with these characters, and the idea is for these stories to move people to act in the real world. And I want to get people in touch with their spirit and the spiritual reasons why all war is wrong and why everything we do here matters. And I intend to eventually get this from book form to film form, and I have a TV series that comes out of it that's sort of a historical reality show, and that's trying to influence people about putting them in that place of, like what you were just talking about, having to fight for your country, having to realize that we live in this system where freedom's not free. We all have to eke out our existence. We're dependent on the biogeochemical realm. We're stuck here together, so we got to find a way to work together, or we're going to slug it out until we all eventually maybe knock each other out of existence. I mean, we're living under the threat of a nuclear world again.
Yeah.
We thought that went away after Reagan and after the fall of the Soviet bloc, but now we're talking, we've got, North Korea, saber rattling, Iran was saber rattling, and Pakistan's a nuclear. It's like we're living under the threat of total annihilation again. So that's what I'm crazy enough to try to do something about, and that's the end game of these books.
Do you think it's feasible? Do you think it's an attainable goal that one day one day that we'll all get along, that we won't have to have this massive buildup of armies, air forces, navies, the nuclear stockpiles, and we'll all get along, even though the majority of all the conflicts throughout Earth's history are caused by religion?
Yeah, and what I'm trying to do could definitely be classified as a delusion of grandeur, but, why not? I mean, I had less than 2% chance of surviving. I was never supposed to be able to live on my own again. So what else better do I have to do with my time than, take a shot at doing this and take what I learned while I was out of this body and share it and try to apply it and shoot, aim high, see if we can get there. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to be nuts enough to do it, and I guess I've kind of been handed my hat.
I think it's a matter of someone has to be sane enough to do it.
Yeah, and I've kind of been handed my hat. I don't have a choice. I mean, I have a pretty serious amount of brain damage still. just getting through the day is a challenge. Moving around in three-dimensional space for me is very difficult. I'm peripherally blind. I have severe nerve pain and a few other things that make life pretty difficult. But they also keep me reminded of that moment that I know that I, like every other human being here, has that absolute truth of you're all going to die someday.
Yeah.
And I know that it doesn't end at that point. Your biology ends, but you're going on. So you better get ready to deal with that and ask yourself what's going on here.
Is it possible that society has outgrown religion, and this is why there are so many battles and disputes over it?
I think they've outgrown religion, and postmodernism wants to think it's good enough to leave all truth behind, and just it's a giant cop-out. People will talk about things like the Bible or the Quran and all these other religious systems, and they don't even read the source code. They've never read the Bible. They've never read the Quran. They've never read the Tao Te Ching, the Bhagavad Gita, you name it. Bother to read it and understand where we've come from, and that some of these systems make a lot of sense. Before you're going to criticize them and go on hearsay, read the source code and know that there's a reason these things were written down at a time when writing a document was an extremely arduous process. It wasn't like you picked up a pen or a computer. No, you had to eke it out, and it was a painful, long process. So they had a very good reason to be writing this stuff.
As an American, where do you think the current political chaos that's facing the country in the U.S. is going to end? Do you think that this is going to be short-lived, and that the House and the Congress and the Senate will sign something in order to get the country running again, or is this a power play?
It's all a power play. That's the thing is, we got, some people are saying that, we're just doing this because of our constituents are demanding it, which is the way that it's supposed to work. But then you've got the other side that's, America's shutting down. Well, really, the shutdown means we kind of went back to what the Constitution says is the primary role of government. The protection of the country, so the military's still in business, and, the vital services are there. But we've got all this other stuff that we've gotten used to, and they're playing it off like, America's shutting down. And it's really kind of going back to the core of what the Constitution says government is supposed to function. It kind of, the Constitution was written so people would kind of take care of themselves and govern themselves, and it was there just to settle disputes. But now we've got this entitlement society that believes, no, government's supposed to be my daddy and mommy and take care of me from cradle to grave. And that's been tried. It doesn't work.
Eric, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. Exonation, Eric Haase is our special guest, www.consciousconsumers.net. And he's the author of Apocalypse Now. Visit his website for his new books that will be coming out shortly. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Smile with the coffee go.
With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.